Hi, thank you for listening to this podcast. My name is Gideon Adeyeni. Today we'll be talking about the political situation in Nigeria. We'll be touching on unionism and we'll be talking on the prospects for the mobilization for a revolution in the country. And to do that with me, I have my brother and friend Toba Odumosun, who is a trade unionist, joining me on the show. Mr. Toba, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. I would like us to begin with something that I know you are very concerned about, which is the increasing commercialization of basic services like education and healthcare in Nigeria. I would like you to talk about the rate and the implication of this commercialization of basic services. You know, many people in our country, including some bourgeois scholars in our universities, recommend more privatization of the education sector, especially the university education, in light of the incessant strike of academic and non-academic academic and non-academic staff of universities. So they have recommended this privatization as a solution to the poor funding and other related problems that define the public education crisis that we have today. So, in your view, is the commercialization and privatization of basic services, especially healthcare and education, a workable and sustainable solution to the crisis of lack of access and poor quality of these services in our country?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it would be callous on anybody's part to, especially understanding the way our society is economically stratified at this material time. Understanding that we have the unfortunate title label as the poverty capital of the world. That millions of Nigerians, not less than half of our population, are currently living on less than $1. To begin to advocate for the privatization of the already, I would say, many of our institutions are already in comatose status, to further privatize them, because simply, even at this level of subsidization that we have now, many people are unable to afford healthcare services and education within these facilities. So to advocate that even those facilities that are struggling, and that even as they are struggling, say that what one would sometimes consider to still be subsidized healthcare service or education system, we are now expecting that people who have already been impoverished by so many attacks in terms of the kind of economic policies that the ruling elite has advanced, that it should now be further attacked with the privatization of those things that are just barely available. We look at our healthcare system, for example. The way it is run, or the way it is intended to be run, is that you have a primary healthcare system that is very close to the average citizen, so and therefore very accessible, that is affordable. But what you find in almost every state is that the primary healthcare systems are almost sometimes the least funded. Because as a developing country, for example, you don't want to treat diseases as your first line of approach. The first thing is that you want to prevent it, because you do not have access to the kind of resources and capital to begin to manage several disease conditions, as it were. So, but these primary health centers usually are the least funded, and that you discover that in fact the way it is structured, you're expected to have 70% of cases that are supposed to be handled by the primary healthcare system. About 27% of cases of healthcare cases be handled by the secondary healthcare system, which will be the general hospitals and the like, and those 3% to be handled by tertiary facilities, where people have cancer and all those kind of things. But you see a situation where these private health centers, where the teeming masses are supposed to access healthcare, are almost completely abandoned. Drugs are not there. The health facilities, the health personnel are not incentivized to be in these places, which already creates a huge distortion. So, in which there is now a massive concentration of healthcare needs on the secondary and tertiary facilities. They are usually more expensive by their design, so that an average person cannot access healthcare. So, in that vein, we know that it would be extremely injurious to us as a nation for anybody to be thinking of privatization of those existing facilities. I think ditto to our educational system. You can see what the privatization within the education system, at least at the primary and secondary level, what they get pretends for the poor masses. We have seen a dangerous neglect of the public primary schools and secondary schools, to which an average middle class person would not want to send their kids, their wards and their kids to those schools. Imagine if we allow them to do the same thing to university education. We understand education as one of the key factors for upward social mobility. So by the time we make that the exclusive only accessible to the powerful and mighty and people with access to capital, it means that we have now put the teeming masses into hopelessness, in which they cannot even educate themselves out of that their situation. Because you know that everywhere we know this is intertwined. Your level of education also dictates even your health seeking behavior, sometimes your level of hygiene, your awareness of disease condition and all those things. So that is like anybody saying that anybody who is poor should just go and commit suicide. That's the layman implication of us talking about privatization of these two key areas of human endeavor in a country that is at the moment the poverty capital of the world. So I think that's the way to put it in.
I mean, I think you have just captured the attitude of those who are defending the capitalist system that we have, aptly by saying the summary of their response has been the poor should just go and die, because we have had some of these politicians, some of those trying to defend this system say, well, education is not meant for all, it is not meant to be accessible to all. And in response, I've once said that education, as far as I understand, is the bedrock of any truly peaceful and prosperous society. At least in a country like Finland, and I think in most of the Nordics, or all of the Nordics, and even in Germany, education is free from the lowest level to the highest level. And so it is not surprising that some of these Nordic countries, Finland, Denmark and co, they score highest in terms of well-being and livability and happiness index and all of that. And so I think you have painted that happily. I want to go to the next question, and that is going to stem from your response too. The masses have been responding to the increasing denial of access to basic services, and we have seen that in Nigeria in the past years. And you will recall the EndSARS protest of 2020, right? And that the EndSARS protest has been described, and I think rightly so, as a pointer to the brewing dissatisfaction with the high levels of poverty and extreme inequality, unemployment and underemployment, insecurity and so forth, and the neo-colonial capitalist system generally. And some have remarked that the dissatisfaction is now reaching an ominous level in our country. So I wanted to look at the EndSARS experience, and more recently the NLC solidarity protest, which we had recently in support of the striking academic and non-academic staff of Nigerian universities. It enjoyed such massive participation from the workers and huge support from other citizens. And I wanted to bring those experiences together to describe the prospect for mobilization for a revolutionary social transformation in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for that very brilliant question. So, and I think that looking at the NSAS experience, it is a very instructive one. It shows that even without the leadership of the trade union movement and even of the student movement, that unionism and activism really resides in the people, and that when there is enough disillusionment and anger among the people, they themselves organize themselves even outside of these formal structures to defend their rights. So I think the NSAS protest the experience is filled with a lot of lessons. It's something that in reflection should give us confidence that hope is not lost, and that we can still galvanize ourselves together to fight for the transformation of society. The NRC solidarity process, ever belated, is also a very welcome one. And I think from assessment, from even engagement during the protest, one can see that different layers of society are really disillusioned with the kind of economic system that we have in the country. From the time of the SAP to the kind of the years of different catastrophic economic policies that were unleashed on the masses. I think people have had it enough and they are tired. And any serious attempt and coordinated attempt to mobilize them towards any progressive cause, then we can rightly expect people to really turn out. We can also take a cue from the massive support that the presidential candidates of the Labour Party in quote anyway, is presently enjoying. I think it's only indicative of the level of frustration that different layers, it's really more especially the middle class, because we can see that while the peasants, maybe because there are no platform for much more popular expression of their own anger, but of course they also escape into the ethnocentric outbursts like the Yoruba nation and all those kind of things. Of course, all those things point to people looking for forms of expressing their anger. The spontaneous nature of the NSAS protest also indicates that the anger is shared across a very large part of our society. So the fact that it was simultaneous, it was uncoordinated, but people could identify with those struggles and could also express their different frustration through that protest, even shows that another one is only waiting in the corner, and that if we are better positioned and we have a layer of activists that can gain the trust of people, maybe we can even learn from the experience and have a much more coordinated, much more effective protests or strikes that will be able to gain for us momentum towards the socialist transformation of our society in Nigeria and take back the society from the present ruling elite. I think, in fact, when you also see the character of that enter protest and the places some of the people were attacking, even though why not justifying it, it shows that they know the people who have cornered the majority of resources of society that is supposed to benefit of. So that if we can get a disciplined and coordinated, we can have a disciplined and coordinated approach to engaging different layers of society and galvanizing this anger, disillusionment and the likes, we can really channel it towards the socialist transformation of Nigeria. I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much. You captured the trend of events in our country quite well. During the NSAS protests, myself as one of those who tried to give some level of organization to the protest, while reviewing all that happened, I said that I believe that our resistance, our protests could have been better organized, and it would have been more difficult to repress if we were better organized. And so I think you're right about us being able to mobilize the people well, provided we have that force of resistors who are well ideologically grounded, and that is what we should be looking at doing. But then you mentioned the Labour Party, and then I laughed, and my next question is going to come on that. I know you are part of a revolutionary movement that has been trying to build, or that has been clamoring for a truly Labour Party. I mean, a Labour Party that is truly pro-Labour, that is truly pro-masses. But recently we saw the leadership of the Labour movement, said that they have reclaimed the Labour Party and reformed it into a truly pro-poor party. But then we saw Peter Obi, who was just a while ago in the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, which is one of the two dominant capitalist parties in the country, become the presidential flag bearer for the party. For the Labour Party, after paying a whooping sum of 30 million naira, which some may consider cheap when compared to APC's 100 million naira nomination fee for the same seat. I wanted to try and describe the performance of the leadership of the Labour movement in defending the rights of workers and mobilizing their members to rescue the poor masses from the capitalist parties, and for them to have these capitalist parties have increasingly advanced a neoliberal agenda. How will you rate the performance of the Labour leadership in mobilizing their members and the poor masses to regain power from them?
Thank you very much for that very crucial question. I think even if one wants to be generous, we could say that our performance has been quite woeful and quite uninspiring. The fact that it has not, rather than build the trust of people, it has diminished their trust in activism, which of course was being manifest in the request by NSAS protesters not to have any leadership. It was already makes clear the general assessment of the performance of trade unions. Another thing I think is important to point out is the lack of an ideological anchor even of the trade unions, because of course it's from the trade unions that then we have the labour centers and the labour movements, and most of the trade unions are athletes of either NLC or TUC. But when you look at it from ground up too, you see that lack of rudderless approach to leadership in terms of having ideological clarity is the only reason why we can have an element like Peter Obi, crossing into Labour Party a few days to their convention and changing the presidential tickets. And of course, even to start with, putting out a form of a Labour Party at 30 million, something that it would take an average worker at least 10-15 years of that, not spending a kobo from your salary to have to pay. So it means that that kind of display by Labour already shows that it even designed a system that has alienated the people who are supposed to be its own members, because it should mean that any worker of genuine who is genuine in offering his services is not welcome to contest elections within the party. That is what it clearly means, because you wonder where an average worker in Nigeria today will get that kind of amount from. And it also shows that there's no that the central ideology, the values and ideals of what we call the Labour Party is completely lost within that kind of party. So I would say that for the Labour Party that I know today, it's definitely does not, it's just a policy party, but the bourgeois elements we have, and unfortunately an average Labour leader that we have today are also right-leaning themselves. And the question to even ask is that anybody who wants to, any Labour center who wants to claim that they claim the Labour Party, or that is now a truly pro-workers party, what you expect is that there will be an active mobilization of workers into the parties. But when you look at the trade unions themselves as of today, you will see that there is very little effort at even engaging the layers of members within the trade unions. Because if you have a trade union that really has, an engaged membership, it will be impossible to throw up any other thing to workers' ideas and policies. But what you see today is that an average trade union either is not willing to really mobilize members to be actively involved in its day-to-day running, or does not mobilize them on the correct ideas. Because by the time you mobilize them on the correct ideas, it will be very difficult for them to throw up a leadership that would be anti their own interests and their own progress. Neither would they want to stomach it. And if you have vibrant trade unions, you do not need and vibrant and very ideologically clear trade unions. It will be more than easy to mobilize them into Labour Party. And of course, there is democratic centrality to what we are doing in trade union. So if they are correctly mobilized into the Labour Party, it will also be impossible for them to throw up people, elements who will not serve their own economic interest or will not serve their own class interest. So that it will just be, it will amount to just wasting people's time or joking. We also say that the Labour Party we have today is representative of the working people, or the NLC, or of the trade union. I would not see any. In fact, when you see the not yet concise economic policies or programs that the presidential candidate is also advancing, you can see clearly that they are variance with the values of what you call a Labour Party. So I think from my own assessment, the workers do not have anyone, at least among the leading presidential candidates, to represent their interests. Neither do they have a party. When the workers have really captured, not the Labour leaders now, when the workers themselves have captured their Labour Party, I don't think you need anybody to tell them. You will know that truly they have a party to represent their interests. But as of today, I think by my own assessment, I think workers and the team masses almost do not have anybody, at least not among the front runners, to represent their interests.
Thank you for that comment. Observing the political situation in our country, especially the development towards the forthcoming general elections, my worry has been that the conversation around the choice of political candidates has been very pedestrian. Very, very few folks like yourself have been talking about the ideological bearing of the parties and the candidates. It has been, what I've seen is more of petty politicking, and I would like to appreciate you for pointing to that. Let me go to the final question that I want to ask you. I've had you use the expression echo chamber to describe how revolutionary messages have too often circulated only within the same cycle of revolutionaries and progressives. I would like you to expatiate further on the importance of reaching the average citizen who may not yet qualify to be described as a revolutionary in mobilizing for that revolutionary transformation of our society that we are hoping for. And what would you say has to be done to make the message of the urgent need for this revolutionary transformation of our economic and other social system find easy appeal among the ordinary citizens? Or maybe I should say it this way, that how can we get the average citizen to enlist our support in the cause of transforming our economic and social systems?
So thank you very much for that very brilliant question. I think it's a very vital and a very important one, and it is so because, like you rightly said, that when we call for meetings and when we call for gatherings and we, discuss socialist ideas and programs and policies among people who have, who have already bought into those ideas, it does very little to advance the cause of socialism within our society, and that it will be extremely important for us to find more creative ways to get the message to the people who really need it, who are struggling. Because the situation we also see, and that's why we know that education is very, very important, because an average person who's conscious is trying to understand his own social and economic reality, and is looking for models to understand what is happening to him and what he can do to better himself. So, and like I said, I think it is the first thing is for us to find other smaller pedestals and platforms to demonstrate, not just teach now, to also demonstrate these socialist ideas and programs, be it at the level of trade unions, be it at the level of community associations, and whatever platforms that are available to us, so that we do not just direct it towards already socialist association. I think that would be the first step. So another thing would be to find other creative ways to deliver these ideas, away from maybe some of the traditional reflecting and approach, to find and a good example is what we are having today, the podcast, something that probably also fits into the pop culture, delivering it through music, through explainer videos, because there's so many people who are looking for some of this information, who are looking for this, because what we have also seen is that on the popular media, TikTok, Twitter, all the likes, the right wing model of viewing everything has almost gone on unchallenged, and that an average person, even in appreciating the quagmire he has found himself, will still continue to find we tend more towards reform of the existing system rather than a radical departure from the colonial capitalist system we have. And that will be because for many of them, they've never been presented with any alternative in creative ways, in ways that meets them where many of them get their daily dose of information and influence. So which will mean that it will be instructive for people who are conscious at a different level to find a way to meet these people at their own level, at where they get their influence and their information from. So which will mean that we must take a radical departure from some of the tradition. In fact, that will not be to abandon them, but to step up the way those ideas are propagated. So in two ways, in terms of mode of delivery, and also in terms of the having practical examples, because you see people everywhere they turn, in their movies, in everything. The only model of transformation that is almost readily available to them seems to be the right-leaning capitalist model, and when it fails, they really pander towards reforming and continuously reforming those systems in frustration. So I think even if we use, and that's what I always say, that our trade unions, they offer us as workers and working people a very reputable platform, and one that is closest to us, to demonstrate how we want to transform society. And that when we demonstrate with the funds that workers put together, with their ideas and everything, if we are able to sell those things at that level and work them out, and people see how some of these programs and ideas, are transforming their lives even at that level, and it will be easier to sell some of these. Of course, we understand that the socialist agenda can best be worked out when it spreads to all over the country, to other countries, and we have a socialist action. So, but at the same time, we must find ways to make it relatable to the everyday people, so that they themselves can imbibe this idea and begin to imagine a better future for themselves through these ideas. So I think those are some of the ways I can think of now. That's
Comrade, I think this is a very good point to end today, and which is to stress the point that it is the responsibility of those of us who dream of a more just, a more equal, a more democratic future to seek creative ways to enlist the support of our people. So I want to thank you once again for your time, Comrade.
the pleasure is absolutely mine.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you very much for your
Bye for now.